Dash just because they're considered privacy coins. So I don't really know where we're going. I hope exchanges will add Monero and just give people an option to use something that's truly private. Dude, definitely hope they do that.
Yeah, I'm hope I've been waiting, hoping to see that. My hope is, I still have hope for Coinbase to add Monero. I mean, so many people ask me. I live in New York too, and everybody's like, "How do I get Monero? How do I get Monero?" So what do you see the future? Well, I mean, what is it going to look like in terms of crypto? I mean, in terms of, and this is Monero talk after all. What role do you see Monero playing? I mean, do you think it's just going to kind of be off to the side, used on the dark web and never really take the main stage? What's your insight there? Where do you see Monero being in the cryptosphere?
It's a tough question. I think Monero definitely has a tough time with that because it's really hard for Monero to kind of be on the main stage. Given the way things are today, I think when it'll take quite a bit of time for people to change their mind about it, right? For people to be used to cryptocurrency, to be used to fungibility and privacy being a right for people to have. I personally think financial privacy is important. Even if you're not doing anything bad, you don't want people to know how much money you have, what you're doing with your money. And yeah, I think it's important. And I really support Monero and the way Monero is doing it. But I think it's going to be tough for it to become mainstream. But it doesn't have to be like mainstream to be successful, right? It can be a very successful fungible currency used by a small percentage of people, but still be extremely successful.
Yeah, world is certainly a big enough place, I think, where it could be its own island. I ultimately see, if that's the case, then I ultimately see, well, why not? Would it not just be bigger? It's kind of like liberty itself, right? So,
yeah,
it's not like maybe it started with one little island, we called the United States of America, and then eventually everybody else caught on to the fact that they want liberty too. Do you kind of see it that way? Do you have that like cypherpunk idealism? Do you look at things that way? Like, this is ultimately, that's like one of the tenets, what it's really about is about liberty?
I do think so. And I think even today, Monero is very useful. So what's important in the future is the ability to easily convert Monero to anything else, right? If there's liquidity for converting Monero to anything else, then it doesn't matter if exchanges don't support it, right? If you can easily buy Litecoin, Bitcoin, and convert to Monero, then if that's done in a way where you don't really need to kind of know to be very technical, then that's good enough, right? You can store your money in Monero, no one can track you, and if you really want to spend it and the merchant only accepts Bitcoin, then just do it on the fly conversion to Bitcoin.
Do you think that's going to have a reaction on a lot of people obviously in Monero land are excited about the fact that atomic swaps are coming, Thorchain, like we were talking about. Do you think that will have an effect on the market? Once swapping into between Bitcoin and Monero or Litecoin and Monero is as simple as going on Coinbase, but done in a way that's, all perfectly decentralized, or in a way where you don't need to reveal your identity or work with a third party. Do you think that will have a strong effect on the market?
I definitely think it will have a strong effect on the market. But I think one other thing you need is better UX, right? The user experience of, I think things like Cake Wallet is helping, but you need more of that, right? To be honest, I haven't used Monero recently, so I don't know what the current state of things with user experiences in terms of, I use Cakewalk a little bit, but I don't know how the Monero core client, how well that's working today. From my experience back then, like many years ago, the experience has a lot of places that needs improvement. Right, it's not easy to store Monero. I think they now finally work with hardware wallets. Right, it's not easy to store, it's not easy to transact. So things like that, once those improve and make it really easy to store, transact, buy, and hold, then I think it will have a large effect on the adoption and the price of Monero.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say we're pretty much there. Like you said, Cake Wallet really, it makes it just as easy as using Litecoin or Bitcoin at this point. No different. Download the app and store, send it as easy as anything else.
Yep.
I think marketing, right? So like Doge has perfected the ability to market. Monero, it's not as I guess memeable or as Doge. What are your thoughts there? I mean,
yeah, I mean, have a cute mascot and they'll take you far. You have someone like Elon Musk pumping it, and that helps a lot too. I mean, to be fair, Dogecoin was kind of just hanging around for years, right? It had a nice pump in, I think 2015, 2016, but then it kind of dropped like 90%, and was hanging around. And the reason why it hung around was because it was merge mined with Litecoin, and you couldn't attack Dogecoin because it's protected by script miners. And then with Elon Musk pumping it, it came back roaring very strong. So who knows what could happen with Monero, but maybe work on having a cute mascot. That could definitely help. Yeah. What's a cute privacy-oriented animal?
Maybe a fluffy pony, perhaps.
Perhaps.
What so I didn't want to go too much into how you got into Bitcoin, because I know you probably told that story a million times. But just out of curiosity, were you one of these guys that were thinking about these things before they got invented? Like, were you thinking about digital cash before you read the Satoshi white paper? I'm just curious,
Not particularly. I wasn't really. I'm not a cypherpunk that was doing this before Bitcoin was created. But my experience with money is just with gold. I've always seen gold as a better form of money than fiat currency. The other things I've seen before Bitcoin is I used to play a bit of poker online, and I saw that when the poker sites got shut down, they targeted the payment methods. Right? They made it impossible for you to deposit money into these poker sites via banks or credit cards or whatever. And once they blocked that, there's just no way for people to move money. And I saw that as that was eye-opening, that they can easily take something that I think is totally legal, right? It's a game of skill and not a game of chance. Even if it's a game of chance, it's your own money, right? You should be able to do whatever you want with your own money. If you want to gamble it away, you want to waste it, then it's your choice. And the fact that the government can come in and say, no, you're not allowed to use money to play poker online because they were appeasing Vegas or the casinos in Vegas or whoever, right? That was very eye-opening for me. And when I saw Bitcoin and then saw poker sites using Bitcoin and saw like Silk Road using Bitcoin, where the government or anyone cannot stop you from spending money the way you want, that was very compelling.
So is that an eye opener now? Now that it seems like people are moving away from Bitcoin for those purposes and moving to things like Monero.
Yeah. I mean, people are still using Bitcoin for that. It's just there's definitely more uses of Monero for just to be more for people to have more control over their money. Yeah. That's why I'm a big supporter of Monero. Yeah.
What do you think about mining, potential censorship of mining? We're seeing compliant miners, compliant mining pools. Do you have any reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty silly. I think it's for compliant mining pools to come out to say we're compliant miners, because in the end, it's not like they're going to fork away if there's a non-compliant transaction in the previous block. They're still going to build on top of it. So and then in the end, what's the point, right? So it is kind of bad if everyone does that, right? But I think Bitcoin is resilient to that. It's built in such a way that honest miners are profit driven, and they would mine any transactions as long as it pays the fees, right? So I think the system is designed to fight against this kind of censorship, and I'm not that worried about it.
Yeah. How about this argument though that most of the miners these days are just really, really big guys that have warehouses filled with ASIC miners that are only produced by a few companies. So it's not as decentralized as we think, or as some think, in that they may be more compelled to be compliant than we think, because they're companies after all, and they want to work nicely with the regulators in the countries they're in, where they're using their electricity and they have their warehouses of miners going. Do you have thoughts there on that argument that's being made?
I think it's not that decentralized, but it's decentralized enough to be censorship resistant. It is true a lot of miners are in China, so if China's cracked down on miners and tell them to censor this transaction, it could be a problem. But I don't think it's that big of a problem. There are miners all over the world, so not too concerned about it. But if it does happen, then it's a problem we have to address, right? So so we'll see what happens, but I'm not that concerned about it. It's definitely not fully decentralized, as decentralized as people hope it would be, but I think over time it will become more decentralized. But yeah, it's not. I don't think it's a big problem.
Do you have any concerns with Bitcoin? Is there anything you look at, you're like, oh boy, that's obviously I guess the fungibility, right? Is that it, or are there other things that you think about?
Fungibility is an issue. I think it's one of the main properties of good sound money that's missing from Bitcoin, and Litecoin, obviously. But it's not a deal breaker, right? So things that I might be concerned about is just more regulation around cryptocurrency on and off ramps that could hinder adoption. I'm a bit concerned about just tax, hassle of spending Bitcoin. Like every time you spend crypto, you have to figure out your gains on it or losses on it and report that. And that's just a huge hassle if you're just using crypto to buy coffee. So that's a concern. I hope that would be addressed. And then,
but it's solving it on. Sorry to interrupt your thought there, but solving that on the protocol level within the protocol. Well, you're just saying dealing with.
You can't solve that on the protocol level, right? So people are working on updating the tax laws to say, like, if you're purchasing stuff, you don't have to pay taxes on the gains, right? If it's something less than a few $1,000s, then you don't have to worry about tax gains on your purchase. New laws like that would help, and you can't fix that on a protocol level. And then there's always a concern about quantum computing breaking cryptography, right? If it breaks hashing, that's probably not a big deal. If it breaks like public key encryption and let people steal your coins, then that's a big issue that we have to address before it breaks.
Are you working on anything to that effect in Litecoin?
No, we're not. Not right now, at least. I mean, we've thought about it a bit, but we're not quantum computing experts, so it's not something we can tackle ourselves. But this is a problem for the whole finance industry, right? If quantum computing breaks cryptography, then like you can steal money from other people's bank accounts pretty easily. So that's a problem that everyone have to face when that happens.
Yeah, definitely. What are your thoughts on, back to mining for a second? So in Monero, they've gone down the road of more staying aligned with the ideals of one CPU, one vote, trying to, essentially turn the CPU into the ASIC of Monero.
How has that worked? Actually, I haven't been following. Is it working well?
Yeah, it seems to be working well. So, are you familiar with RandomX?
Not too familiar. Obviously, heard of it.
Yeah. So that's the proof of work that Monero is now using, and it seems to be working quite well.
That's cool. Yeah, I think that's a good idea to have. To be able to, that will make things more decentralized. Yeah, so anyone with a CPU can do it. The downside is a botnet could mine a lot of coins or take over the network. Not take over the network, but it can have some control. So botnets are an issue when CPU is the ASIC, right?
Yeah, I believe RandomX does have some protections against that. I'm going to get criticized now by the Monero community because I'm not giving the best response to that, but they do have some good protections against that, is my understanding. Is any thought of Litecoin ever going down that direction, or you guys are fine with mining as is? I imagine most of it's mined with ASICs.
Yeah, it's probably all of it's mined with Litecoin ASICs or script ASICs. I think it's fine for now. I do think about it every now and then, but it's not a huge concern. But it's also going to be very hard to switch mining algorithm right now for Litecoin. Yeah, just so no plans to switch to something different. Yeah.
What else can we expect from Litecoin? So adding fungibility. What else is on the roadmap? What are some of the other big things you're looking to do? What is the ultimate goal with Litecoin? Where are you trying to take Litecoin to?
I mean, the ultimate goal is just to be money, right? To be a currency that people use on a daily basis to store their money and to spend. So things I'm working on is just having more places that accept Litecoin. So working with payment processors to accept Litecoin, to support Litecoin so that merchants can easily accept Litecoin, convert to fiat currency. Making sure Litecoin is liquid. I think liquidity is very important, and that's something that Monero is running into, right? It's not as liquid, so it's hard to get Monero, first of all, and it's also hard to sell a lot of it and not move the price, right? So if a coin is very liquid, then merchants can easily accept it and convert it any amount to US dollar or whatever fiat currency they want without moving the market and affecting their sales. So liquidity is very important, and adoption. Make it easy for people to hold and store Litecoin, have Litecoin support in different wallets, a lot of ATMs supporting Litecoin, stuff like that, just increasing adoption and awareness.
I remember Litecoin, there was news that it had acquired a bank at some point.
Yeah, this is a while ago. We have a small stake, 9% stake of WEG Bank in Germany. So we've been working with them on that. They're working on supporting cryptocurrency for people who have bank accounts can also have like crypto accounts side by side. So, and also supporting merchants to let merchants accept cryptocurrency.
Is there progress being made there? Since that's old news now, so I'm just curious. What did that turn into?
I mean, things are slow. Just dealing with banks, with regulators, it's just slow. They're conservative, but stay tuned. They're working on something that will be announced later this year. Actually, fingers crossed. Things don't get delayed. But yeah, they're launching some crypto products.
And when it was said Litecoin acquired a bank or hasn't, what does that mean? There's like a Litecoin Foundation, or it was?
Yeah, it's just a Litecoin Foundation. So Litecoin Foundation started in 2016. I'm the managing director of the Litecoin Foundation, and we support Litecoin wherever we can, and we hire Litecoin developers to work on Mimblewimble, for example, and also Litecoin Core. and we we partner with Token Pay on this bank deal. So Token Pay owns a percentage of the bank also, and so it's not Litecoin acquiring a bank. It's actually the Litecoin Foundation owning a small percentage of a bank.
All right. I normally ask people, where can we find you? Where can people learn more about you? But I certainly don't need to ask you that question. I think anybody watching this show would probably know you already, I would hope. But thanks so much, man, for everything you do. Thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for being a crypto early adopter and helping, get us to where we are today.
Yeah, you're welcome. I had fun being on this show. Good stuff with Monero. I'm happy to see all the progress going on with Monero.
What is it? I guess I'll ask you, one more question. What most excites you about the crypto space right now? Is there anything in particular, or is it still just good old money? What are you most excited about?
I would say like companies investing, putting their corporate treasury in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrency is definitely very exciting. I personally didn't see that coming, but it made a lot of sense. It's a better form of money, a way to store their value than US dollar. So I think it does make sense, and I'm excited to see more companies doing that, both announcing them or privately. I'm sure there are a lot of companies doing it privately and not telling people about it.
Do you think we'll start to see that with other cryptos? Them adding, instead of just adding Bitcoin to their treasury?
Hard to say. I think Bitcoin is still like the best store value. It's a crypto reserve currency, right? So it's kind of like other countries storing US dollar versus euro, for example. Maybe other countries are storing euro as a reserve, but US dollar is still the main reserve. So in the crypto space, Bitcoin is still the main reserve currency.
All right. Charlie, thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
All right, man. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode. We release new episodes every week. You can find and subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have an Alexa device, you can tell it to listen to the latest episode of the Monero Talk podcast. Go to monerotalk.live/subscribe for a full list of places where you can watch and listen. If you want to interact with us, guests, or other podcast listeners, you can follow us on Twitter. And please leave us a review on iTunes. It helps people find the show, and we are always happy to read them. So thanks so much, and we look forward to being back next week. Do you love coffee and Monero as much as we do? Consider making gratuitous.org your daily cup. Pay with Monero for premium fresh beans, and if you like what you taste, send a digital cash tip directly to the Guatemalan farmers that made it possible. Proceeds help us grow this channel, Gratuitous, and Monero. This week on Monero Talk is sponsored by Cake Wallet. Store, send, receive, and exchange your Monero and Bitcoin safely on iOS and Android too. Cake Wallet is open source, and you always control your own keys. And by Sweetwater Digital Asset Consulting, connecting new money with old money since 2018. Cake Wallet and Sweetwater Digital are trusted and verified by the Monero community. Monero Talk is also made possible from contributions by viewers and listeners like you. This week on Monero Talk, Douglas Tuman interviews Charlie Lee, a crypto OG who needs no introduction. Doug and Charlie discuss whether the top is in, Elon Musk, Litecoin adding privacy, Monero's future role in the cryptosphere, and more. Oh, and an important piece of news, Litecoin is now live on Cake Wallet. As Doug discusses with Charlie, Litecoin is a great on-ramp to Monero for those that don't have access to an exchange that sells Monero for fiat. Just buy Litecoin with fiat and send it for super low fees off the exchange to your Litecoin Cake Wallet address. And then when ready, exchange it in Cake for fungible Monero. Thanks again, Cake, for making Monero more usable. Monero Talk starts now.
Charlie, Thanks for coming on, man. Appreciate it.
Sure, no problem.
You're fading into your background a little bit there.
Yeah, it makes it pretty obvious I'm not actually on the space station. That's too bad.
So what's going on, man? You actually reached out to me, which is awesome. I think I had tweeted you years ago to try to get you on the show.
Yeah, I saw that tweet like a week ago. I'm like, oh man. Like, yeah, that was like years ago. And I didn't reply. I didn't see your tweet back then. So for some reason I ran across it. I don't know how.
I think people were recently liking it again for some reason and retweeting it. I guess trying to get your attention, which apparently we did. So
yeah, so it's years in the making, this interview.
Yes, highly anticipated.
Yeah.
So when's Magical Crypto Friends coming back? Can we expect that to come back anytime soon, or is that a done deal?
Maybe after the Beatles getting back together.
I love that. You know who? The only person that loved that show more than me was my 5-year-old daughter at the time. That intro was just I think that got her into crypto more than anything else.
You're talking about Friends?
Yeah, the Magical Crypto Friends.
Yeah. The intro was pretty well done. Samson actually did it.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe we'll have another show. We'll see. We've been all so busy, so.
No, I know. Well, I was a very big fan. So one of your big fans, and I also love the conference that you guys put on, the one that was in person. I mean, that was definitely a highlight for me in terms of being in the cryptosphere. That was awesome.
Yeah, I thought it went really well, the conference. Yeah, it's too bad we weren't able to do another one, but COVID happened and then everything just got pushed back. Yeah.
You think we'll ever see one of those again?
Less likely than a show. So if we start doing shows again, then we're more likely to see a conference. Maybe we'll see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess everybody's going to want to hear this question. So do you think we topped? I know you're an expert at calling the top. I believe last time some would say you were the cause of it. Not me, but I think you were somehow blamed for the top last time, the crash after you sold your Litecoin. So if that is true, and you are a master at calling the top, have we topped once again? What do you think? Well,
first of all, it's amazing that people think I have the money or the power to crash the whole market from my small amount of Litecoins that I actually held. But I mean, that wasn't like I knew what was going on. I know there's a cycle, right? So I had no idea when the cycle would end. To be fair, I thought at that cycle 5,000 was the high for me, and it hit 20,000, right? So who knows? No one can really predict what's going to happen. But I think for this cycle, I don't think we've hit the high yet. I think we've had a correction. These bull markets, like 30-40% correction. This one was like 50%, but that happens quite a few times throughout the whole bull market. I mean, it's because how volatile it is. We need the correction to kind of to consolidate and for people to kind of hodl and go back in, right, to buy more coins. So that happens a lot, and I'm not surprised by it. So nothing. It didn't really like shake me out or anything. I think this correction, we've seen the bottom of this correction, so I'm waiting for it to come back up.
And if it was the top, at least they'll be blaming it on Elon Musk this time, not you, right?
Yeah, correct.
What's your thinking there? What is Elon up to be like? Any idea what is he doing? Is he a true Dogecoin believer? Does he really think proof of work is a waste? But which I don't really get because Dogecoin uses proof of work. What is he doing?
I don't know. I think he just shoots from the hip. He just tweets whatever he's thinking about at that time. And he probably saw an article about mining waste and then decided to make a decision to stop supporting it. Just maybe he's getting pressure from his board or his investors that Tesla shouldn't be supporting Bitcoin, which has an image of energy waste. Whether or not that's true is besides the point, right? So So he decided to make that tweet, and then like after he caused the whole market to crash, he posted that Tesla has diamond hands, right?
Right.
So he's just doing whatever he wants, and that actually helped the market come back a bit. So he's pretty much manipulating the market as he's just having fun.
Yeah, you think he's trying to teach people a lesson? I mean, I have to believe he understands crypto than he's leading people on to believe, right? I have to believe that he truly understands what it's all about, right?
That I don't know.
No?
I don't think he understands the energy usage that much. I don't think he understands. He made a tweet about increasing block size by 10 and then decreasing fees by like 100. Basically just something that would cause a lot of centralization to the blockchain without really understanding what he's actually suggesting.
Do you think he knows that? I mean, at least I think the purpose, and I'm pretty sure you agree with me here, that like the main value proposition of crypto is, the censorship resistant nature of it. Do you think he appreciates that aspect?
No, I actually don't think he does. I don't think he appreciates that. Not as much as like Michael Saylor does, obviously. So yeah, he's still got a lot to learn.
Yeah. So what's your current take on crypto? What do you what projects do you currently value that you see value in, or is it? It's obviously not just Bitcoin because you've created Litecoin, and you're still working on Litecoin. So how do you see the crypto space? Do you think there's a couple of valuable projects, or?
I'm focused on kind of the money aspect of cryptocurrency. I think one of the things that really needs censorship resistance is money, and censorship resistance decentralization is expensive. Just by design, it's not efficient. So things that don't really need censorship resistance and decentralization can't really afford to pay for that decentralization, right? So I think money is one of the few things that need it. So that's what I'm focused on. And
so did you, when you created Litecoin, was that, I assume you had the same thinking then, you already knew or had that same idea as to what the purpose of crypto was. So when you created Litecoin, was it really out of a way to improve upon things, or what were you thinking when you created it?
To be honest, I wasn't thinking too much about it. I wanted to create something that was, I actually positioned it as silver to Bitcoin's gold right from the beginning. So as something that complements Bitcoin, and having two coins is useful. I've always saw that Bitcoin at that time kind of fulfilled the needs of everyone. It was fast, it was cheap, it was secure, it was decentralized. But over time, it can't be perfect in all these categories, right? Something has to give, because as the network grew, because the decentralized blockchain is so inefficient, so you have to compromise in one of these areas or one or multiple of these areas. And what actually gives Bitcoin value is the censorship resistant part of it. It's not the cheap and fast part of it, because PayPal is cheap and fast. Visa, credit cards is cheap and fast, right? That's not what gives Bitcoin value, right? At that point in time, it could compete in that aspect, at least layer 0 or layer 1, but over time it wouldn't be able to. And I knew that didn't think too much about it, but like I kind of knew that going in, and I thought Litecoin could complement Bitcoin in that aspect, where it can be faster and cheaper. It will be less decentralized, and it will be less censorship resistant, but it will be cheaper and faster. And I saw how Bitcoin and Litecoin can work together in that aspect to fulfill the needs of payments. And obviously now there are layer 2 solutions, which also is great because it makes things instant and also extremely cheap. And you have different kind of security trade-offs with that. But I think these things are good enough for payments. So that's kind of how I see things going. Yeah.
So do you see Litecoin now competing with Bitcoin? Do you see them as competitors?
To a certain degree, it's always competing because you're competing for people holding money in terms of where they're putting in Litecoin or Bitcoin or a bit of both. But I also see them as complementary. Bitcoin as mainly for store of value and Litecoin for payments. And it's up to people how they use it, right? I use Litecoin quite a bit even now. I'm not invested in it, but I have Litecoin for payments. And whenever I send people money, I use Litecoin if I can.
You never reinvested in it since you sold that time? You never?
No.
Oh wow.
No.
So what's your thinking there? Why not own the project that's essentially yours?
Because I don't really need to, and like people say, like if I don't own it, then they don't own it. They won't own it because I don't own it. But then if you think about it, like what's the point of decentralized money if the creator has to own a large portion of it? It's not like I had a large portion to begin with, but it's kind of silly for decentralized money to have to require someone or me to own it for it to succeed, right? So I'm still working on it full time. I'm working on adoption, working on development of it, and I see owning it is just a distraction, right? If I'm distracted by the price, then I'm not really focused on what actually helps Litecoin succeed. And price is not everything, right?
So you'd see that as wouldn't that help though? Give you more of an incentive? I get, so like what scenario would it get in the way? Like you mean like a design decision where you're saying, where you're thinking more about pumping the price versus.
Exactly, right. So I have incentives to pump the price, to care more about the price than actual adoption and usage of the currency, right? It's over the long term, it's aligned, but short term wise, it's not necessarily aligned. And in the end, Litecoin was launched fairly, so it's not like I pre-mine like whatever 20 million Litecoins that I have and I just dumped them all. So whatever Litecoins I sold was just a small amount that I bought and mined myself. So it's not like it affected the market any. It's just the perception, actually. The perception of it was worse than the actual selling, right? The selling didn't move the market at all because it was a small amount.
Sure.
But the perception of saying that I dumped all my Litecoins at the high is just something that was blown out of proportion, but it is what it is.
Yeah. And but that's still your main focus now in crypto. That's like what you're working on is Litecoin.
Yeah. I'm always pushing for Bitcoin adoption too. It's not just, I never say like invest in Litecoin, it's going to be the next Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is still going to be the main store of value, the crypto reserve currency.
I actually find myself telling more people to use a Litecoin than Bitcoin, believe it or not, really for the use case of trying to get them into Monero, right? So it's hard to get Monero for some people, but you can get Litecoin easily on like Coinbase.
Yep.
So instead of buying Bitcoin, which has high transaction fees, you might as well buy Litecoin, and then you can move it out of Coinbase and make your way into Monero. So I actually find myself telling people more about Litecoin than Bitcoin for those purposes.
Cool. How do people trade Litecoin from Monero?
Well, even in Cake Wallet, right? So are you familiar with Cake Wallet? They actually just added Litecoin.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
They have an exchange built in there, and you can swap between Litecoin and Monero.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was actually talking to them the other day, suggesting that they should built in atomic swaps between the currencies. It'll be cool to be able to do atomic swap between Litecoin and Monero.
Yeah, do you see that happening anytime soon, or do you see any work being done there?
There are atomic swaps being done by different exchanges and different products. Like Decred has a decentralized exchange that does atomic swap between Bitcoin and Decred, and I think they also added Litecoin, but it probably wouldn't be hard to also add Monero in it. So yeah, there is work being done on that front.
Yeah, there's a couple of projects that are working on Bitcoin to Monero atomic swaps. Mm-hmm. And then have you heard of Thorchain?
Yeah,
heard of Thor. Yeah, so that's I think we're going to see that being added to Cake once they figure out how to do the swapping between Bitcoin and Monero. But yeah, I was just curious if there were actually people working on the swapping between Litecoin and Monero. Do you know?
I don't know. But maybe Cake Wallet might start doing something like that. We'll see. Yeah.
So I guess that
using Bitcoin is just hard right now on chain, because you have to pay high fees, obviously, and then you aren't sure if it will make it into the next block. So I've done atomic swaps with Bitcoin, and it's waiting for that first confirmation is is kind of stressful, and it's a pain. But with Litecoin, it's pretty simple, and Monero.
Has your opinion of Bitcoin changed at all? I know you say you see it as a store of value. That's its main use case. Have you always looked at it that way from the early days, or did you initially look at it as what the white paper was titled as? A peer-to-peer, cash system, essentially, digital cash system.
Like I said, I think Bitcoin initially just fulfilled the purpose of doing both. At least what I mean is Bitcoin on chain. Now you have second layer solutions, and I compare it with like gold and paper currency. So gold being layer 1 and paper currency being layer 2. Previously, before fiat currency, paper currency is backed by gold, right? So you put gold somewhere, and then you have paper currency, and you can more easily trade and spend the paper currency than you can do with gold. And if you ever want to get back to layer 1, you go to your bank, give them the paper currency, and redeem the gold, right? So that's very similar to how Lightning Network works today, where you open a channel, you deposit Bitcoin into the channel, and then you have LN money, right? LN Bitcoins, and you can more easily move that around. But if you ever want to get back your layer 1 Bitcoins, you just close the channel and retrieve the Bitcoins, right? So the best part about this solution is you can't remove the backing. Right, you can't remove the layer 1 backing of Bitcoin, whereas with paper currency, the government removed the backing and made it so that you can't redeem gold with your fiat money anymore. And that's kind of the beauty of Bitcoin layer 1, layer 2 solution, is you can't remove the backing. So I still see Bitcoin as fulfilling that vision of a peer-to-peer electronic currency, electronic cash. It's just on a different layer, which is fine and the right thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, what I struggle with is the fact that on the protocol level, Bitcoin is really just digital gold at this point. If people want to believe that, and I feel like that's really the only thing that's giving it value at this point, is everybody deciding to use it as a store of value. I mean, why not make Dogecoin the digital gold, or Litecoin for that matter? I mean, why Bitcoin?
Because it's more decentralized and more secure. It's just it's the most decentralized, most secure cryptocurrency out there. So it is what people think it is, right? If people think Bitcoin is valuable because of this aspect, then it is valuable, right? So
but gold. Do you think? I mean, gold didn't randomly become gold, right? It was because I guess it has certain attributes.
Correct. And Bitcoin there's a network effect, right? So if another commodity came out that has similar or better attributes than gold as being money, it will take a lot of work and a lot of time for that to replace gold as money for everyone, right? So like platinum, for example, people can say it's more rare than gold, but it hasn't really taken over as money for people.
And I guess what I'm getting at, I'm sure you kind of see where I'm going. So the fact that Bitcoin lacks fungibility, which I personally think is kind of a core tenet to what you would want to have in money, something that you're using as digital gold. The fact that it lacks that, does that mean something such as Monero that has it built in, could that potentially be a better form of money or of digital gold?
Potentially. I do like Monero a lot, but there are trade-offs. So I think the auditability is a trade-off with a privacy currency like Monero. So you're trading off fungibility for that. And there's definitely a market for that. But I don't see Bitcoin going towards the direction of Monero, where it would do full privacy and then give up the auditability of it. But yeah, I think there's a market for a coin like Monero, but I'm not sure it will be able to take over Bitcoin as the number one top currency. That'll be a tough ask.
And really, it all boiling because of network effect, or really because of this auditability issue that you're talking about?
Because of the auditability and also the network effect. So if Monero has everything Bitcoin has and privacy, the network effect will be the only thing that it has to overcome.
Right.
And eventually it will, right? But because of the auditability issue, it's more than just the network effect.
I mean, we do know that Monero can be audited, right? It's just you're more reliant on math than actually just being able to add up all the numbers yourself on a ledger. There's some trust there that the math is correct, the cryptography is correct, and that it was properly implemented. But doesn't that just apply to other aspects of all crypto? I mean, Bitcoin has had implementation issues. It's had bugs. So why is that critical for Monero, but not critical for Bitcoin?
It's the fact that if there is an issue, you may not know that there's an issue. I think that's a hard pill to swallow for most people.
Or it would take longer to know, I guess. I guess eventually you would know, right? It just wouldn't be as instant.
Yeah, eventually you'll know, and by then it'll be too late. So, or potentially too late, right? So, what would I compare that to? If you compare that to gold, right? It's like you have another mineral that has all the properties of gold. It's more fungible, but you don't know. Like in the ocean, there might be a ton of it, right? And then that'll destroy the kind of the scarcity of that commodity, right? So that's an issue that people would have. But we know gold doesn't have that problem, except actually it probably does. If there's an asteroid with a lot of gold that crashes down to Earth, then you also have a huge increase in the quantity of gold. But yeah, something like that. It's always going to be a concern for good money.
Do you think over time people overcome that? Because like I said, I mean, really Bitcoin kind of faces the same issue. It's just not instantaneous. But over time, as people begin to the longer Monero exists, the longer it's looked at, and the longer trust is built up in it. Do we get to the point where people are like, okay, we can trust the fact that there's no secret, emission that's happening within Monero? Code has been audited over and over again.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't think we'll easily get there because crypto gets broken all the time over time. So the cryptography Monero relies on would be broken by just over time or by quantum computing, whatnot. So I think that's always going to be a concern.
Right, but the quantum computing would just as easily affect Bitcoin, right?
Yeah. But it will affect Monero. If it affects Monero, you won't see the problem until it's too late. If it affects Bitcoin, then everyone will see it right away, and you can not easily, but you can kind of do an emergency hard fork, fix it, and move on. With Monero, you wouldn't know until 6 months, a year later, and by then you can't undo the damage. So that's kind of the difference in the trust.
One of the interesting ways people have been looking at it as well, it would actually give people a chance, a fighting chance with Monero. Kind of everybody would be on the same footing, as opposed to in Bitcoin, maybe, I guess the fact that people wouldn't know that it happened would cause it to kind of crash slower, as opposed to just, in Bitcoin where it would be catastrophic. I mean, it's an interesting take on it. I don't necessarily agree with that. But.
And then you hear, what I'm seeing with Monero today is, the price is low, right? A lot of people expect Monero to be doing better in terms of price-wise, market cap-wise than it is today. And I hear people talking about it. Maybe there is a emission that is undetected, and someone is just printing Monero and selling it, and that's depressing the price. That's probably FUD. It's very likely FUD, but you can't say that's wrong for sure, and that's a problem, right? Someone can create this FUD, and people will believe it, and you can't deny it because you don't know. I can't prove that that's not happening. And with Bitcoin and Litecoin today, you can, right? You can just point to the count. It's not more than 21 million, whatever it is today, 17, 18 million. And you can defeat that FUD right away. But you can't with Monero, and that's always going to be a problem.
Yeah, I guess it really comes down to a philosophical choice for a lot of people, because what you're getting on the other side is pure fungibility.
Correct.
So I've recently been hearing you say how Litecoin is adding fungibility to its protocol. So what exactly are they doing? What are you guys doing to add fungibility?
We have a project called MWeb, which stands for Mimblewimble extension blocks. So we're adding the Mimblewimble technology to Litecoin as an extension block. What that means is, so extension block is similar to a sidechain, except that it's kind of an attached sidechain. So every block, there's a main chain block and then there's an extension block, and you can move coins between the two. So, and then once you're in the extension block, everything uses the Mimblewimble protocol to move money. And then you can peg out and pull coins back to the main chain whenever you want.
Okay, so it's kind of it's an opt-in privacy as needed, kind of like a Zcash thing.
Correct. It's not correct. It's not like Monero where it's by privacy by default or privacy on all the time. So it's an opt-in. Once you opt into the MWeb, then everything uses Mimblewimble, and it's not perfect, right? It's not, the privacy is not like Monero. It's a little bit different. We focus on more scalability. I think that's very important, and that's one thing that Monero has an issue with, which is it's not as scalable as Bitcoin. So we're tackling it from a different angle.
You don't think Monero's a scale? Well, wouldn't they both come down to second layer solutions, right? So where do you see there being a difference there in terms of scalability?
Just the fact that the transaction output grows indefinitely. I don't think it's a problem today, but it could, if it gets used a lot, it could potentially be a problem where all full nodes have to hold on to the whole transaction output, every transaction outputs for the rest of the time, right? I think that is going to be a problem for scaling.
How about this thought that, second layers might even work potentially better on something like Monero because it has a tail emission. And so miners will always have the incentive to mine. So there's no fear that all transactions move to the second layer and that there's then no incentive to mine on the base layer. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I don't think that would be a problem with Bitcoin because there will still be main chain transactions. If you're moving $1 million, you want to use the main chain for security. You can't really do it with second layer, and they're always going to be open and closing channels. So the main chain will always be full, I would say. So I don't think that's a problem with moving the transaction fee so that there's no miners mining the main chain. I do agree that having a tail emission is useful. It's definitely a different monetary policy. The interesting thing with Litecoin is because Litecoin is merge mined with Dogecoin, and Dogecoin has a tail emission, so effectively Litecoin has a tail emission also. Litecoin miners are going to be mining both Litecoin and Dogecoin because Dogecoin has a tail emission, even if Litecoin's block rewards get really small. So that's an interesting dynamics that we haven't seen. We're starting to see it play out, but it'll be interesting what happens like 10 years, 20 years down the line.
Is it becoming a what's that expression? The tail is wagging the dog situation. So is Doge starting to eclipse Litecoin in ways? So it used to be that you're merge mining Doge with Litecoin. Are you now essentially mining Litecoin with Doge?
it all depends on how you look at it, right? In the end, the merge mining protocol is just two coins are kind of merged. Miners are mining both and getting both rewards, right? So, yeah, previously a few years ago, Doge reward is like maybe 5% of Litecoin rewards. Now Doge rewards actually exceed Litecoin rewards. So miners are getting more Doge in dollar terms than Litecoin for every block, for every certain amount of time. So it's an interesting dynamics how that's playing out. And it's not causing problems. It just means miners are just making more money. There's like the Litecoin pool pays out pay per share. And it used to be paying out like 105%, for example, because they're selling Doge for Litecoin and then giving the miners 105% of the share that they're providing. Now it's paying out like 400%, something like that. That changes obviously daily. So for the shares you're providing, it's paying out 4 times as much Litecoin as you would normally expect if you're just only mining Litecoin, because it's mining Dogecoin and selling that for Litecoin. It's good for miners for sure.
And just to jump back to the adding fungibility to Litecoin. So why did you decide to make it opt-in as opposed to default? Was it purposes of staying on exchanges, not getting booted off exchanges? What was the design decision there? Why'd you guys decide to go that route?
Well, for one, we didn't want to give up the auditability on the main chain, and two is because definitely regulatory concerns. So we kind of want to be liquid on exchanges and also provide ability for people to easily move their coins to something that's more fungible. Definitely we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, so just like Monero, coins on the MWeb side of things is not as auditable as the main chain. So there's going to be, from the main chain perspective, there's going to be like a bucket of coins that's sitting there that represents coins on MWeb, right? So if you add up all the coins on Litecoin main chain, it will still be at most 84 million. So if there's any issues on the crypto or implementation side of MWeb, then it will be isolated to the MWeb side of things. It won't affect the main chain. So it's kind of I think it's an interesting way for us to do it this way, and we'll see how well that works.
But is it fun? Are you adding fungibility though then in that respect? Because I mean now you have these two types of Litecoin, right? So you have your transparent Litecoin and then your private Litecoin. So
we're adding fungibility once you're in the MWeb side of things. So we'll see what kind of adoption we get, right? So if we get people adopting the MWeb side, and if you can fully stay on that side, then everything you do there is more fungible than your main chain Litecoin. So in some sense, it's not very different from if you bought Litecoin and then Atomic swapped it to Monero, right? You can think of Monero as kind of a side chain or whatever of a Litecoin, right? It's just, you're just moving it from one to the other. So it's not very different functionality wise. The only difference is one Litecoin is one Litecoin on both chains, right? So you're not switching currency and affected by the exchange rate between the currency, and there's no spread.
Right, but the transparent Litecoins can be marked. So sure. when you move into the non-transparent Litecoin, you could be kind of seen as somebody who's looking to wash your coins, so to speak, right? Yeah,
I mean the same thing is happening today when people are buying and selling Monero on an exchange.
Right? Well, I mean, I think that's more of a stretch, right? Because to assume that everybody that's using the protocol is using it for, dark purposes.
The same thing for MWeb, right? I would move my coins to MWeb not because I want to use it for illicit purposes, right? Same thing.
Right. Okay. Yes, I don't see why you would. Well, I guess because you said for other reasons, right? There's other reasons why you are doing both. So, do you anticipate that exchanges aren't going to react to this in any negative way?
I've talked to a lot of the main exchanges before, going down this path. I expect they won't bother supporting the MWeb side of things. They'll just support main chain, and they can do their chain analysis of the main chain transactions. I don't think they will see a problem with it. But never 100% sure until it happens, right? Until we launch it.
Yeah. So do you have any insight there? I mean, you used to work at Coinbase. I think you're one of the first employees over there. Mm-hmm. You're certainly around in the early days. I think had you already left once they added Litecoin, or?
No. I left soon afterwards. So I was planning on leaving before they added Litecoin. Before they made the decision to add Litecoin, I was already working on adding SegWit to Litecoin and already doing mostly Litecoin stuff and just doing part-time Coinbase. And then I kind of already gave up on them adding Litecoin because I was getting so much pushback. And then before I left, before I actually physically left the company, they made a decision to the Litecoin volume went really high because of SegWit, and then I made a tweet at Brian Armstrong about adding Litecoin to Coinbase.com, and then he tweeted back and said, "Let's do it." I'm like, "Wow, okay, let's do it." So we eventually did that before I left.
Can you tweet him to add Monero and then maybe we can get that added?
I don't think he'll.
Why did they never add Monero, even from the early days?
It's probably regulatory pushback. I think it's just even if they're not getting a firm no from the regulatory bodies, it's not worth it for them to kind of risk it. Right? They don't get much benefit from adding Monero versus any of these other coins, and not worth risking it, I would say.
But Zcash, they have because of this opt-in privacy versus default, you think?
Yeah. Actually, have they added Zcash? I'm not.
I think so, right? Don't they have Zcash?
I don't know. I know Gemini has Zcash.
Oh, Gemini has Zcash. Yeah. I Coinbase did too. Maybe they don't. Or maybe I'm wrong there. Okay.
I actually don't know. But yeah, I think it's the optics of it. Right? So it's pushing opt-in, saying it's good, and that's why exchanges added it. It's all optics, I think.
Do you think that's going to change? I mean, Kraken has had Monero on, and they seem to be fine with it. You think we're going to, move in a direction where exchanges are going to start to be okay with Monero? How do you have any opinion there on what the regulatory landscape is going to start to look like?
I don't really know. I mean, on one hand, we see exchanges starting adding things like Zcash. And then on the other hand, we see other exchanges delisting Zcash, Monero, and Dash just because they're considered privacy coins. So, I don't really know where we're going. I hope exchanges will add Monero and just give people an option to use something that's truly private. Dude, definitely hope they do that.
Yeah, I've been waiting, hoping to see that. My hope is, I still have hope for Coinbase to add Monero. I mean, so many people ask me. I live in New York too, and everybody's like, "How do I get Monero? How do I get Monero?" So, what do you see the future? Well, I mean, what is it going to look like in terms of crypto? I mean, in terms of, and this is Monero talk after all. What role do you see Monero playing? I mean, do you think it's just going to kind of be off to the side, used on the dark web and never really take the main stage? What's your insight there? Where do you see Monero being in the crypto sphere?
It's a tough question. I think Monero definitely has a tough time with that because it's really hard for Monero to kind of be on the main stage. Given the way things are today, I think when it'll take quite a bit of time for people to change their mind about it, right? For people to be used to cryptocurrency, to be used to fungibility and privacy being a right for people to have. I personally think financial privacy is important. Even if you're not doing anything bad, you don't want people to know how much money you have, what you're doing with your money. And yeah, I think it's important, and I really support Monero and the way Monero is doing it. But I think it's going to be tough for it to become mainstream. But it doesn't have to be like mainstream to be successful, right? It can be a very successful fungible currency used by a small percentage of people, but still be extremely successful.
Yeah, world is certainly a big enough place, I think, where it could be its own island. I ultimately see, if that's the case, then I ultimately see, well, why not? Would it not just be bigger? It's kind of like liberty itself, right? So,
yeah,
it's not like maybe it started with one little island, we called the United States of America, and then eventually everybody else caught on to the fact that they want liberty too. Do you kind of see it that way? Do you have that like cypherpunk idealism? Do you look at things that way? Like, this is ultimately, that's like one of the tenets, what it's really about is about liberty.
I do think so. And I think even today, Monero is very useful. So what's important in the future is the ability to easily convert Monero to anything else, right? If there's liquidity for converting Monero to anything else, then it doesn't matter if exchanges don't support it, right? If you can easily buy Litecoin, Bitcoin, and convert to Monero, then if that's done in a way where you don't really need to kind of know to be very technical, then that's good enough, right? You can store your money in Monero, no one can track you, and if you really want to spend it and the merchant only accepts Bitcoin, then just do it on the fly conversion to Bitcoin.
Do you think that's going to have a reaction on a lot of people obviously in Monero land are excited about the fact that atomic swaps are coming, Thorchain, like we were talking about. Do you think that will have an effect on the market? Once swapping into between Bitcoin and Monero or Litecoin and Monero is as simple as going on Coinbase, but done in a way that's, all perfectly decentralized, or in a way where you don't need to reveal your identity or work with a third party. Do you think that will have a strong effect on the market?
I definitely think it will have a strong effect on the market. But I think one other thing you need is better UX, right? The user experience of, I think things like Cake Wallet is helping, but you need more of that, right? To be honest, I haven't used Monero recently, so I don't know what the current state of things with user experiences in terms of. I use Cake Wallet a bit, but I don't know how the Monero core client, how well that's working today. From my experience back then, like many years ago, the experience has a lot of places that needs improvement. Right, it's not easy to store Monero. I think they now finally work with hardware wallets, right? It's not easy to store, it's not easy to transact. So things like that, once those improve and make it really easy to store, transact, buy, and hold, then I think it will have a large effect on the adoption and the price of Monero.
Yeah, I'd say we're pretty much there. Like Cake Wallet really, it makes it just as easy as using Litecoin or Bitcoin at this point. No different, download the app and store, send it as easy as anything else.
Yep.
I think marketing, right? So like Doge has perfected the ability to market. Monero, it's not as I guess memeable or as Doge. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, have a cute mascot and they'll take you far. You have someone like Elon Musk pumping it, and that helps a lot too. To be fair, Dogecoin was kind of just hanging around for years, right? It had a nice pump in, I think 2015, 2016, but then it kind of dropped like 90%, and was hanging around. And the reason why it hung around was because it was merge mined with Litecoin, and you couldn't attack Dogecoin because it's protected by script miners. And then with Elon Musk pumping it, it came back roaring very strong. So who knows what could happen with Monero, but maybe work on having a cute mascot. That could definitely help. Yeah. What's a cute privacy-oriented animal?
Maybe a fluffy pony, perhaps.
Perhaps.
What so I didn't want to go too much into how you got into Bitcoin, because I know you probably told that story a million times. But just out of curiosity, were you one of these guys that were thinking about these things before they got invented? Like, were you thinking about digital cash before you read the Satoshi white paper? I'm just curious,
Not particularly. I wasn't really. I'm not a cypherpunk that was doing this before Bitcoin was created. But my experience with money is just with gold. I've always seen gold as a better form of money than fiat currency. The other things I've seen before Bitcoin is I used to play a bit of poker online, and I saw that when the poker sites got shut down, they targeted the payment methods. Right? They made it impossible for you to deposit money into these poker sites via banks or credit cards or whatever. And once they blocked that, there's just no way for people to move money. And I saw that as that was eye-opening, that they can easily take something that I think is totally legal, right? It's a game of skill and not a game of chance. Even if it's a game of chance, it's your own money, right? You should be able to do whatever you want with your own money. If you want to gamble it away, you want to waste it, then it's your choice. And the fact that the government can come in and say, no, you're not allowed to use money to play poker online because they were appeasing Vegas or the casinos in Vegas or whoever, right? That was very eye-opening for me. And when I saw Bitcoin and then saw poker sites using Bitcoin and saw like Silk Road using Bitcoin, where the government or anyone cannot stop you from spending money the way you want, that was very compelling.
So is that an eye opener now? Now that it seems like people are moving away from Bitcoin for those purposes and moving to things like Monero.
Yeah. I mean, people are still using Bitcoin for that. It's just there's definitely more uses in Monero for just to be more for people to have more control over their money. Yeah. That's why I'm a big supporter of Monero. Yeah.
What do you think about mining, potential censorship of mining? We're seeing compliant miners, compliant mining pools. Do you have any reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's pretty silly. I think it's for compliant mining pools to come out to say we're compliant miners, because in the end, it's not like they're going to fork away if there's a non-compliant transaction in the previous block. They're still going to build on top of it. So then in the end, what's the point, right? So it is kind of bad if everyone does that, right? But I think Bitcoin is resilient to that. It's built in such a way that honest miners are profit driven, and they would mine any transactions as long as there are